Is the Giants season over? Are the Dallas Cowboys back on track? We'll talk about last night's Thursday night game, plus preview the entire Week 4 NFL slate. Cole Thompson joins me in his regular spot. It's the Jake Asman Football Show, and it starts right now.
Oh, yeah. It's time for the Jake Asman Football Show. Brought to you by BetUS. Expert betting odds and fantasy stats. So let's get into some NFL football. Brought to you by our friends at BetUS. So get your questions ready. Here's your host, Jake Asman.
Yeah, baby. Here we go. Welcome in, everyone, to a show that talks all things NFL football. We are presented by BetUS. A reminder, if you want to sign up for the best sports book you're going to find, go to BetUS right now. Use that promo code you see on the screen, YouTube 150. Start playing today and take advantage of a 150% sign-up bonus. Joining me right now in his weekly spot on a Football Friday is a man who celebrates Hawaiian Shirt Friday. Cole Thompson joins the show to talk all things NFL. Cole, good afternoon, my friend. Happy Hawaiian Shirt and Football Friday to you.
Happy Hawaiian Friday, and I'm really pissed off right now because I did not get the line at plus 5.5 for the New York Giants. I took it at 4.5, and lo and behold, the gods decided to go ahead and bless those that were patient. I wasn't, and so naturally, I'm sitting here as a loser already on a Friday morning.
Well,
who knows what time it is?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's YouTube. People are watching whenever they feel like it. But let me say this: you look at the game last night, and the Giants, who in recent games against Dallas don't even look like they belong on the same field as the Cowboys. They at least made it competitive last night, had chances to win the game. But when push came to shove, I thought Brian Daboll coached scared last night, Cole. He was aggressive on some of these fourth downs, and then it's 4th and goal from the 4-yard line. You might not get that close again to the end zone, and he's settling for a field goal there. I thought that was weak. And the Giants just made too many mistakes. They had too many drops. I didn't think Daniel Jones was bad last night. I thought he was okay. He played well enough to win if other players around him were better. But, we're 6 years into the Daniel Jones experience. And now at 1-3, I don't really see the path to the Giants remaining relevant. Their schedule is brutal coming up. And that was a winnable game last night, just like it was winnable week 2 against the Commanders. If they just had a kicker, it just kind of feels like the season's starting to slip away from the Giants. So we'll start with the Giants before we get to the Cowboys. What did you make of last night?
You know what I mean? This was a team that is not actually taking itself seriously as a contender. It is because of Brian Daboll on 2 separate entities, could have gone for it on 4th down, converted. One would have been for a touchdown. One would have been for a first down, and at least put Joseph in better field goal range to where you're not risking a potential long kick. But it just felt like he was pedestrian. This team is just going to be going through the motions. And again, you brought this up. The interception by Daniel Jones at the end of the game, that's kind of a wash. It's like a Hail Mary pass. What are you going to do? You have to be able to see that just kind of float out into no one's business and no man's land. It was a heave to the back of the end zone because of what else can happen. But Daniel Jones is not a bad quarterback in terms of how we view him when there are moments that he can step up. But he's not a quarterback that can take you to that next level. He's never going to be a quarterback that can get you to the Super Bowl. He's never going to be a quarterback that can take you deep into a postseason run. He's never going to be the quarterback that elevates your team from anything more than probably just a 10-11 win roster and maybe a playoff victory. He is even more Kirkland brand Kirk Cousins if we're breaking it all down. The running back room, you see a lot of potential at times, and then you see a regression with Devin Singletary. They're paying him $12 million to be an overall focal point, and it feels like that he can't ever get any movement in the ground in the open field. When you look at Malik Neighbors, dude's a stud. Honestly, Malik Neighbors has overexceeded expectations, I think, already in a short time, to where everyone knows he is not only the number 1 receiver in that room, but also he is the foundational block moving forward. On top of that, you just kind of look at this defense, and there's been some highs, there's been some lows. Go ahead and talk about a guy like Deontay Banks, sometimes really good in coverage. He is the master of getting burnt on the flat on the slant pattern. That's what you have. You have a team that's just kind of going through the motions, and they're flat out mid. They're just a mid overall roster. But what we can take away with this is that if New York is mid, 7-win team that probably is going to finish 3rd in the division, Dallas is mid. And Dallas also is going to be taking a few more hits because they're going to be without both DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons for several games.
I looked at the Cowboys last night, and I was not impressed at all.
No.
I mean, Dak was okay. He made some plays. But Dallas with the penalties, I mean, some of them were just, by the way, just in general, the officiating last night, egregious. Just these refs wanting to make it all about themselves. I mean, it was an absolute flag fest in this game last night. Like, it was a competitive game from a scoreboard standpoint, but as far as like the enjoyment of watching this game, I mean, you couldn't get through 2 plays in a row without a flag. So that sucked. I'd like to throw that out there. But as far as Dallas goes, I mean, look, a win's a win, but they're nowhere near the team we saw in the regular season last year to this point. I mean, the Cowboys do not look like a Super Bowl contender right now. And you could say, they're never a Super Bowl contender because they never get it done in the playoffs. I get it. But the last 3 years, they've won at least 12 games in the regular season. They don't resemble the team we saw last year at all in the regular season so far.
Dude, they look like a team that simply just doesn't have any juice. Like, they don't want to play for a guy like Mike McCarthy. That's kind of how it feels. And I could be wrong on that, but still, you look at the way they had the explosive plays. The 1 touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb was an awesome throw from Dak Prescott, but it was also terrible coverage by the New York Giants. So can you really say that you felt confident after that play, or did you just get kind of lucky? And also, the defense is not doing a damn thing to kind of help them out. They're still allowing first down conversions. There were countless penalties in this game from both sides of the football, especially in the first half. It was a flag here, a flag here. Let's go ahead and give you a flag. Literally, refs were like Oprah, handing out yellow cards to every single person that existed. That's what it was. And for them, their best asset is having a good pass rush. Well, now what do you have? Because you're going to be without a guy in Micah Parsons. You're going to be without a guy in DeMarcus Lawrence. I will give credit. Mozzie Smith has looked better in year 2 than he did in year 1. But this is still a team that for years was expected to be right alongside the conversation of 12-win season, second overall seed, potentially first round seed, get the bye, and we're going to be able to kind of have momentum. We will be hosting playoff games. And they looked like that. But it feels like that you're seeing Brandon Cooks take a step back. You don't have a consistent number 2 weapon at the wide receiver position. Jake Ferguson offers more value at this point than both Cooks and Jalen Tolbert, and your run game is still your run game. So who are you fooling here right now, Dallas, when you try to sell us that you went out last offseason and try to go get Derrick Henry? You're Jerry freaking Jones. You're able to fumble the bag in so many different ways and scenarios where you don't care about the quarterback, you don't care about getting certain players paid, but you're okay with having Zeke back in the building, but you realize that you need a ground game, yet now you don't have anything. It's fecal at best. Congratulations. Everyone wants to go ahead and start putting blame on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's the problem. Dak Prescott's not the problem with this team. Jerry Jones is, and as long as Jerry Jones is alive, this is what you can expect. Because if he thinks he's smarter than everyone in the room, he thinks that he is the best person to know everything about the sport, and he doesn't. And because of that, Cowboys fans consistently find themselves wishing that it was 1995 so that way they can live in the glory days. You're not going to see a Cowboys team go to the Super Bowl so long as Jerry Jones is in control.
Yeah, I mean, Guyton's struggling on the offensive line. They couldn't find a way to keep Tyron Smith for $5.5 million guaranteed. Like, it's just the personnel decisions they've made have not been good, and the team is not as good. I think maybe some of the pressure is being felt on Mike McCarthy as a lame duck, knowing if he doesn't get to a championship game, chances are he's probably out of a job. But you look at the Cowboys schedule coming up here, Cole. We're going to learn a lot about them quickly. At Pittsburgh next Sunday night, the Detroit Lions after that, bye week, and then they'll play in San Fran also on Sunday night against the Niners. And by the way, never a good sign if you're a Niners fan when Christian McCaffrey has to go to Germany to get his Achilles looked at. That is not what you want if you're a Niners fan.
When you're going to a specialist that is international, you are not feeling the love, as Pitbull would say. You're definitely nowhere near that type of consistency right now. And best of luck to you, Christian. Best of luck to really everyone with San Francisco, because their season, I'm not saying it's over, but you definitely are not the best team in the NFC on Sunday afternoon.
Well, it's interesting because Kyle Shanahan said Christian McCaffrey was likely going to play week 1. Now he might not play when. No one knows. If you took Christian McCaffrey in fantasy football, you got absolutely hosed by the Niners not giving you the full story on the severity of that injury.
Jake, you know what the crazy thing is that I never listen to those that do like the fantasy experts because of your guess is as good as mine. You have no idea what to expect. The one time I actually listened to them, it was with Christian McCaffrey being a first overall pick. Everyone that took him number one, that was the very first time and only time I'm going to give credit to these fantasy gurus. They knew what they were talking about, because if there's always been that sign, progression, year 3, recession, progression, it's year 3. What can we expect? Recession, baby. And lo and behold, you cost your season. Sometimes it actually pays to not be the smartest man in the room.
I wanted nothing to do with McCaffrey for fantasy purposes. I thankfully took Breece Hall, and so far so good.
I'm still jealous of you for that. I'm so pissed I couldn't get him. I'm pissed.
Right. Let's get to the week 4 schedule. We'll make our picks at the end. Cole had a losing week, everybody. That's right. 1-2.
Who's hey? Where do I rank right now?
It's a what have you done for me lately league, Cole.
Yeah, and guess what? You barely squeaked by with Dallas last week. I mean, with Baltimore last week, and I didn't squeak by, and I was fine the entire time in Washington.
It doesn't matter. All I know is 2-1 last week for me, 1-2 for you, baby. So we come in red hot. We'll make some picks at the end. Here's the full slate. You see it up there on your screen. Of course, you could bet on any of these games with BetUS, so make sure you guys take advantage of that. Let's start with the early slate here. Let's get into this Bengals-Panthers matchup, because Andy Dalton now at quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, he played like prime Peyton Manning last week in Las Vegas. 3 touchdowns, over 300 yards. I can't even imagine what's going through the mind of Bryce Young. Was that more about just the Raiders being awful and, as Antonio Pierce said, making business decisions? Or are the Panthers actually a decent team now? And then there's a Bengals team they're playing. I mean, they're 0-3. Everyone had them winning last week against the Commies. Jaden Daniels had other ideas.
Yeah,
so
you had them winning last week.
Of course. It certainly feels like, if not now, then when for Cincinnati. But all of a sudden, there's some intrigue with this matchup based on what Dalton did last week.
Can you imagine growing up as a Bengals fan and realizing that Red Rifle is still in the league and finally coming back to play you again? And he hasn't had any gray hair whatsoever. It's still as fiery as ever. So it's like looking at Jake Asman in the mirror on a Sunday morning. It's beautiful like that. No, for me, what I consider is this is a really interesting moment, because I don't think the Panthers are as good as they looked last week, but also you prepped most of your film has been on Bryce Young. So you didn't know what to expect from Andy Dalton. If anybody knows what to expect from Andy Dalton, it's Cincinnati. And on top of that, they at least have a full game to watch. Where are the flaws? Where are the kinks? Where are the minute chinks in the armor that we can go ahead and attack early on? And I do think that, yes, while Cincinnati has been a very underwhelming team, it's been awful. It's not on Joe Burrow. The first 2 games, it was limited passing because of what you had at your disposal. Last week, you have 3 touchdowns. You have a passer rating of over 121. Nobody can blame you that you didn't get the ball on the final drive to be able to make success. So it's like, that's where I look at where you get back to the basics. You're supposed to be fully healthy this week, albeit the offensive line still has questions galore, but you will have T. Higgins. You will have Jamar Chase. Mike Gesicki seems to be a pretty decent fit for this offense. I'm not really worried about Cincinnati. I think if they're going to start off 1-3, I still feel like compared to where they are with everyone else currently in the NFL, they maybe are the best 0-3 roster, but certainly you don't want to start off 0-4, because we know what history has said multiple times about where teams are trying to make the playoff resides. Also, Jaden Daniels looking like basically prime version of, I don't know, Randall Cunningham. That's not sustainable either. There's 2 truths to every situation. The defense played awful last week. Andy Dalton looked like a stud last week. You're not going to see it happen back and forth.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, 0-4 is a death sentence for Cincinnati. So if you got any pride, right, you want to have a season, you have to find a way to beat the Carolina Panthers, who until last week were viewed as by far and away the worst team in the league. Another early window game I want to quickly touch on, Saints-Falcons, because all of a sudden Atlanta at 1-2, if you're trying to compete in that division, right, this is a huge matchup against the New Orleans Saints. Atlanta, they had a chance to win last week. I thought they got hosed by the officiating at the end of that game with the Chiefs. But if you're the Falcons, once again, this is a huge game for division implications against a New Orleans team that kind of got humbled a little bit last week, losing to the Eagles in New Orleans.
I think the other thing is that you watch the explosive plays against this secondary are really pivotal to get success. I mean, New Orleans allowing Dallas Goedert to get the 67-yard play, the 67-yard touchdown to Saquon Barkley in the open field. If you can start attacking that secondary and really the safety play with guys like Darnell Mooney, with guys like Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, depending on what his status is, and also you're going to feel like that this is kind of a win now moment, because hype started really picking up around a team like Atlanta, especially after the trade for Matthew Judon and the signing of Justin Simmons. So they feel like that they are still in control of this division, but things can easily get out of hand. If you're New Orleans, you got to realize that you can attack the offensive line. Right now you don't have Jake Matthews at practice today. I think it's because he's welcoming in his second child. So congratulations, Matthews family. It seems like you're playing, but you probably won't see Drew Dahlman, and you definitely won't see Caleb McGarry. So can this pass rush find a way, whether it be in the interior or on the exterior, to get in that backfield and force a guy like Kirk Cousins to throw under pressure, to throw into double coverage? And will that lead to turnovers in favor of Derek Carr? And do we see vintage Derek Carr? I'm going to tell you what, Jake, until I see it consistently, I know what happens with Derek Carr in an election year. I feel really confident that New Orleans has a shot to bounce back simply because of number 4 and who is running for the presidential Oval Office. Those two things seem to combine together every single 4 seasons.
Hit the like button if you're tuning in. It's the Jake Asman Football Show previewing the Week 4 NFL slate. Cole, next game, let's get some thoughts on Packers-Vikings. I'm not going to tip my hand or anything, but if Jordan Love plays, kind of feels like the Green Bay Packers have an opportunity to hand Minnesota their first loss. I think the Vikings, you saw them up close covering the Texans, what they did last week. I think they're good. I don't know if they're this good. This will be an interesting litmus test, seeing Minnesota on the road here, going up against potentially the return of Jordan Love in Green Bay.
Number one, if there are any Packers fans watching this, you better not boo a man in Aaron Jones. That was a savior. That was a saint. He did everything right. And unfortunately, business is business. But
he'll get cheered. They're not going to boo him.
They better. I will find the people in Green Bay who decide to boo that man. But Jake, I'm going to be completely honest. The defense of Minnesota, that's a Super Bowl caliber defense. Brian Flores, whether or not you agree with how he handled the Tua situation and how things ended out of Miami, that is my favorite for a coordinator to get a promotion this offseason. He has looked phenomenal dialing up stunts. And last week with limited players, including Ivan Pace being out, including Dallas Turner being out, they still found a way to get in the backfield against a Houston Texans offensive line that's expected to be better than advertised, for 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, 8 tackles for losses, and they forced 2 turnovers, especially with backups and older cornerbacks like Shaquille Griffin and Stephon Gilmore. Like, that's where we are. But the offense, you are right. This is going to be a major test, I think, for Sam Darnold on the road, playing at Lambeau, in an atmosphere that he won't have the home crowd rallying behind him to give him the opportunity to call plays and audibles at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be that same type of feel that C.J. Stroud went to last week. And also, you don't know what you have in your personnel. It worked extremely well last week with Justin Jefferson and then getting Jalen Naylor involved. But Jair Alexander is a veteran cornerback who has spent the last 4 years going up against a guy in Justin Jefferson. He can take him out of the play. So what is your second move? What is your second punch? What is your second ability? But also, if this defense does corral and make Jordan Love have multiple mistakes, you may have to turn back simply to a guy in Malik Willis, because if the last thing you want to see is your quarterback that you just paid an egregious amount get hurt because the offensive line isn't protecting him up front.
Well said. All right, let's keep going through a couple games here, then we'll make our picks. Want to get your take on the Jaguars and the Texans. You're based, of course, in Houston. I look at this game and look, I think Jacksonville might be horrendous, but now or never. Same thing we said about Cincinnati trying to avoid an 0-4 start. I mean, the Jaguars, you couldn't play worse than they did on Monday. Texans coming off a beatdown as well. You're covering this game Sunday. Your thoughts on the matchup?
I want to see what we're going to get with the run game for Houston, because you got to realize that Joe Mixon came back to practice today. He's going to be listed as probably questionable on the injury report. If you get him back, the main storyline that I have to follow here is, well, what version are we going to see moving forward for Houston's ground game? Is it going to be the one that got 159 yards and averaged 5.3 yards against the Indianapolis Colts? Or are we going to get one that averaged 3.1 yards against Chicago? Does Chicago have a really, really, really good defense? Or does Houston just have a very anemic running game? Like, that's what we have. And then for Trevor Lawrence, can you bounce back? Because right now, the good news is Dameon Pierce is not expected to play. That is a Jags killer. Tank Dell's not expected to play. That is a Jags killer. Can you not make dumbass throws? I mean, like, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest, dude. I think that Trevor Lawrence right now is getting so much crap, But then you go ahead and watch how he played, and he throws the most dumb interception I have ever seen to Damar Hamlin. It's ridiculous. And right now, there is no coach on the hotter seat than Doug Peterson, because of the entire offseason was built around him saying, oh, we don't know who's calling plays. We don't know who's calling plays. Only to find out it's still Prez Taylor. And then this week, after you score 10 points against a beaten down Buffalo Bills roster, and the game is out of reach before halftime, you say we're going to make no adjustments to the offense. Like, that is writing on the wall that you are just a dysfunctional franchise that's not going to find any direction. And at this point, you're probably going to go ahead and watch him find a way to be on the unemployment line. I think Houston wins, but they're 0-3 against the spread so far this year. It's one of those games I just don't feel comfortable picking at this moment.
Yeah, it's a strange one. There's no doubt about that. All right, Cole. Sunday night, maybe the game of the entire card here. Bills at Ravens. Buffalo looks as good as you could possibly look after what we saw on Monday from that offense. Ravens looked like they had a dominant win in the in their hands and nearly choked it away last Sunday in Dallas. Ravens at home. Are they really going to be 0-2 at home this year? I don't know. This is a really good game. I'm excited to see these two quarterbacks go at it. What do you make of it?
I don't think Josh Allen was trying to call out Stephon Diggs, but what I will say is that he feels so much more comfortable when there's just a ton of weapons. Unknown for the most part, Keanu Coleman, Khalil Shakir, God knows who else is playing without tight end with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, the third wide receiver. I'm blanking on it right now, but Curtis Samuel. Like, you're not being force-fed to go give the ball to one person for 1 million targets because if he wants to see a stat line improved. And because of that, Allen's playing clean football, and he's playing concise football, and he's going to be going up against a defense that has some question marks in the secondary, but when it's on point, it's very challenging to go win one-on-one battles with Marlon Humphrey, with Kyle Hamilton, with Marcus Williams, even with the young guys such as Nate Wiggins, who came on over from Clemson, the first-round pick. He's going to have his work cut out for him, but if he balls out in this game, Jake, the standard at this point is Josh Allen is the favorite to win the MVP. Josh Allen not only is the favorite to win the MVP, but Buffalo should be considered a favorite to win the Super Bowl. And they have a defense that, yes, while questionable at best, still is finding ways to make 3-and-outs and teams uncomfortable on third down. They're one of the best teams when it comes to third down conversion rates against them. So I just look at where Buffalo is. They continue to impress me every single week. If they do what they do and they limit Lamar Jackson and they just see Josh Allen have another MVP caliber performance, it's once again writing on the wall. Here's Kansas City, and right below them is Buffalo. And it's not going to change anytime soon.
Comments, questions, super chats. We'll cut the line on the show. Cole, it is time to make some picks. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. You won last week. You get to start.
That's right. For those new to the show, Cole and I, at the end of every football preview show we do on Fridays, we each make 3 picks against the spread using the lines from BetUS. Once again, the show, if you haven't got the message by now, is sponsored by BetUS. All right, Cole. Game number 1 for me, full disclosure, it was originally going to be Jets-Broncos when the line was 7. Even at 7.5, I felt confident in the Jets covering that number. But now that number is up to 8, and I just feel a little uncomfortable taking my team laying that many points, even though I do think the Jets probably win by 2 scores. I'm going to avoid that one, and I'm going to take a pick that is grotesque, but I just have a feeling. I like the Jaguars getting 5.5 against your Houston Texans. The Texans have not been great this year. They've won ugly. Nothing wrong with that, but they don't really blow teams out. They got some issues with the offensive line right now. I could see Jacksonville being so desperate that they just find a way to make this a game. It's a division opponent. I mean, this is the Jaguar season here. They can't be 0-4. I don't know if they win the game, but I'll take the 5.5 points. I think this is a game in the fourth quarter. So game number 1 for me, I'm basically buying the dip. Jacksonville, you couldn't look worse. But we said the same thing a week ago about Carolina, and then look what they did to the Raiders. So I'm going with the Jaguars getting 5.5. It's an ugly pick, but it's a pick I'm making for my first game.
I'm so glad you brought up the Carolina Panthers. I am so glad that you mentioned that team because right now, Aura is at an all-time high. They feel really confident with what they have in Andy Dalton. And a win can sometimes just turn your overall persona around. Dave Canales, regardless of what you think about him coming on into fix Bryce Young, has shown you time and time again that his methodologies work as a coach. He was able to go ahead and get Geno Smith back to the right ways. He was able to go get Baker Mayfield playing like the vintage Baker Mayfield of 2020. Everything that you see from him can work for a young quarterback. And they have some pieces. They went out and they spent money in the offseason. They went out and they were able to go ahead and fortify their offensive line. I love the Xavier Legette pick, and I think that his role is going to expand now with Adam Thielen being out and now on the injured reserve, which is why I think that you're going to see them turn right back into the pumpkin. I'm hammering 4.5 in favor of Cincinnati. You're not starting off 0-4. It's not going to happen. I know there's questions with their defense. I know they allowed too many explosive plays against Jaden Daniels, basically looking like RG3 2.0. I get it. I know that this is a team that probably I was way too high on going into the offseason, but still, they have the better quarterback. They have the better wide receivers. They still, in my opinion, have the better linebacking core and front seven. And if you can just pressure Andy Dalton into making mistakes, it's going to bode well in your favor. You're not starting off 0-4, Cincinnati. I'm taking them with 4.5 points. Go ahead, Cincinnati. You can thank me later that this is the turning point that you needed. And I'm sorry, Carolina. You're still Carolina, run by the worst owner in all of football. By the way, the only reason why you're not the worst owner in sports is because John Fisher still exists.
Ladies and gentlemen, my second pick is a game we already talked about. Vikings at Packers. Cole, I like the Green Bay Packers here. I don't think Minnesota is as good as they have played. I think it's different when they go outdoors and play at Lambeau. I think Sam Darnold, who has been great, is due to have a game where he's not Peyton Manning in his prime. So I think that we're going to see a spirited effort from Green Bay here. It's 3 points. I'll take the Packers at home. I think they cover and obviously win outright in the process. So Vikings at Packers, give me Green Bay -3 for my second of 3 picks.
I'm so glad we get another head-to-head. I am glad we get another head-to-head. I am trusting this Minnesota Vikings defense. I love what I've seen from them. They're going to get back at Ivan Pace. They're going to get back at Dallas Turner. The question mark is, can you get back at Jordan Addison? And if that's going to happen, I love what I'm talking about. With him, Jalen Naylor, and Justin Jefferson, you have to play advantages when you get the open opportunities. And having a Jordan Addison will open up the field for Sam Darnold to attack. He likes his tight end room. He's going to be fine. I love what I've seen so far from this offensive line as well. They're keeping Darnold upright. He's not making many mistakes. I don't think you're going to see this pass rush be able to get into that backfield to force Darnold to have to play under duress, have to play in a panic mode. I'm taking the +3, and I'm going to go a step further. Minnesota continues its undefeated season. They go 4-0. They go into Lambeau. Aaron Jones gets his revenge. 150-yard plus rushing game performance by him. I think this is a moment that he has been waiting for. 3 touchdowns on the day. They're going to win this one outright.
Cole, I got some news here. I had another game I liked. Browns at Raiders. But now I can't pick the Raiders because the Raiders seconds ago just ruled out Devontae Adams, Max Crosby, and Michael Mayer for this game against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. I mean, I can't pick the Raiders now. I need another game. I need another game. So would you like to give your third and final pick while I try and come up with a third game here because I was not prepared for this?
Yeah. We're not talking enough about the Pittsburgh Steelers. We really are not talking enough about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, you have to live with the fact that Justin Fields is going to be limited as a passer. I've come to that realization. I think many people have come to that realization. He's just a dude that's going to get 2 or 3 great throws and then a lot of dink and dunk passes. Can you connect with the guy in George Pickens? Can you connect with a guy in Pat Freiermuth? Can you have a stable ground game? But that defense is not going away. Yeah, you have the question marks with the jumping off sides from TJ Watt, but still, what are you talking about? Like he's in his prime and he doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. This secondary looks great. You're seeing progress from Joey Porter Jr. You're seeing progress from Minka Fitzpatrick back to an all-pro level. And they're playing against an Indianapolis Colts team that, yes, does have a quarterback that they believe can be a difference maker, but every throw is either going to be a touchdown or an interception. And if I have a defense that's playing as quickly and as polished as Pittsburgh, all I have to do is hope that Justin Fields does not turn the ball over. Another team that I think is going to be 4-0 this week. I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm hammering the -1. I think they're going to win by a touchdown. I know it's a road atmosphere. I know that what Lucas Oil Stadium can be. Sorry. I still feel like Pittsburgh's defense has been playing out of its mind. And even though they have some question marks on the offensive line, you got a quarterback that can run. You got a quarterback that is able to connect deep downfield on multiple plays. It's going to have to happen in a very dumbed down offense led by Arthur Smith. But I can't trust Anthony Richardson.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have found a third game. It was not easy. Cole, give me the Falcons at home laying the point against the Saints. In Kirk Cousins, I trust. I don't know why. I just think Atlanta's the better team. I don't have a lot of faith in Dennis Allen. I guess I can't say I have a ton of faith in Raheem Morris at this point, but there's less of a known on what he is as a coach, at least in Atlanta, than what Dennis Allen is. I don't know. I think the Saints, they were just taking advantage of the wackiness of the start of an NFL season. So I like Atlanta at home. It was tough to find a game I truly liked. I really was thinking the Raiders were going to bounce back after what happened last week, but no Devontae, no Max Crosby, no Michael Mayer. Felt like I had to change the pick. That said, the Browns are awful, so the Raiders still might win, but I like Atlanta better. So just to recap, my 3 games: Jaguars at Texans. I like the Texans. I like the Jaguars, getting the 5.5 points to at least cover. Vikings at Packers. I like Green Bay laying the 3. And Saints at Falcons. Give me Atlanta covering the 1-point spread. Cole, your 3 games: Bengals laying the 4.5 at the Panthers. Vikings were head-to-head. You like the +3 at Green Bay, and you're on the Steelers -1 at the Colts. Those are our 3 games. Overall, Cole is 6-3 on the season. I am 4-5, although I had a winning week last week at 2-1. Cole went 1-2. So we'll see what happens this week in the picks. Always fun, my man. Another NFL slate is upon us. The season flies by before you even realize. I cannot believe it's already week 4.
I don't want to believe that we're getting into the month of October. Like, that just makes me so sad because of it already shows that we're winding down and that we didn't appreciate the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. So now we got to go ahead and appreciate what we got in week 4. We got to appreciate what we get going into the month of October. Spooky season is upon us. I'm going to be another year older, which sucks, and I'm not excited for that at all. But you know what? I can appreciate that I get to come on this show every single week, talk ball with one of my dearest friends, and more importantly, watch him have to eat crow because I'm going to go 3-0 this week. You're going to go 0-3 this week, and you're going to have to understand I am the God. I am the best. People come and they hang out with Cole because of Hawaiian Friday, and more importantly, because he's right. He's always right. Even when he's wrong, he still is right.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Cole Thompson, one of the largest egos we have ever seen in the history of egos.
Always the largest ego. It's so big it can't even fit inside this jug of water that I'm chugging.
Ladies and gentlemen, that does it for our show. Once again, thanks to BetUS for sponsoring. If you want to fade my picks, fade Cole's picks, or take our picks because you think we're going to do great, you can make any of those bets we just talked about by going over to BetUS right now. And once again, use that promo code YouTube150 to take advantage of that 150% sign-up bonus. He's Cole Thompson. My name is Jake Asman. Everyone enjoy your Football Friday. Enjoy the college slate. Cole, real quick, 10 seconds or less. You're a Bama alum. Alabama or Georgia? Who you got tomorrow?
The standard has been decided that it is now in Athens, Georgia, because of Nick Saban retired. By everyone except for yours truly, the standard still is in Titletown, USA. 31-28 final score. Alabama comes out on top.
Roll Tide. He's Cole. I'm Jake. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. And we will talk to you next time on the Jake Asman Football Show.